Hey everybody, we're back here at Red Rocks Racing Sportsbook for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered as usual by STN Sports. He's Jason, I'm Chucky. We're here to break down not only what's going on this week, but what happened last week as well, kind of recap that. It was an exciting college football slate last week, Jay. We're going to talk about college football first. You had Alabama in a really close game against Missouri. You had Oregon and Indiana. We talked about how good is this Indiana team. It's a tough place to go play in Eugene. They were a 7-point underdog. They really were in control of that game the entire game. UNLV got a win, but didn't cover. There was a lot of good games last week. You looked at UCLA, who after their upset win against Penn State, traveled back to the Midwest against Michigan State, got a win, and then Penn State, who lost at UCLA, came home again over a 3-touchdown favorite, back-to-back weeks. First time in college football history this has happened. Penn State got beat again by Northwestern. Ultimately, it cost Franklin his job. It's happened before in the same season, but not back-to-back, where a team that was a preseason number 2 rated team in the country lost outright by being 3-touchdown favorites or more. So kind of an exciting week last week. There's some great games this week, but it was fun last week watching all the kind of parity in college football.
Texas had some CPR pumped back into them in the Red River rivalry.
He wasn't ready. He wasn't ready to play.
Knocked off Oklahoma.
Right.
Georgia was able to go in and kind of steal a game from Auburn, a game that Auburn really dominated in the first half. And so, again, it's been an exciting college football season. And we talked about it last week on Bookends when we looked back at the Oregon-Indiana game, was that everybody's so impressed by that Oregon win traveling to Penn State in the whiteout and that big win there. But then Penn State loses, and so was that such a quality win? And did that leave the door open for Indiana to go steal a game? And again, very impressed by what Indiana was able to do.
That was a huge win for that program. I think kind of a signature win. And I think you look at Indiana right now, and man, they're a team that has a lot of confidence. They kind of exude what their coach is. He's just no nonsense. He takes no you know what, and the team plays like that.
Yeah, and we'll see if Cignetti is going to be a name that's out there. We'll see if he's the next guy that has a $50 million buyout in his contract. Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback for Indiana, vaults his way up that Heisman Trophy aboard, with Mateer struggling with Oklahoma. Obviously, Carson Beck still sitting up there, and Ty Simpson
not only has he
for Alabama shooting up the board
on the
as well.
Heisman Trophy, but he's actually vaulted his way now. I know it's really early to talk about the draft, but as the potential number 1 quarterback taken next year. So really playing well right now. So we're going to look at some of the games this week, but before we do, last man standing, guys. I mean, with all the upsets and all the parity, we've kind of talked about it. Last man standing, a dramatic drop. There are only 46 of you guys left in last man standing, so congratulations. Great job, but every week now we are seeing more than a 50% drop. Usually this goes to around Thanksgiving, the college contest. We are really seeing it kind of dwindle in a hurry.
Somebody's getting real close to taking that $100,000 prize home.
They are. All right, we're going to jump in and look at some of the bigger games this week. Let's start with, we have a lot of ranked games. Last week we had a really good schedule of games with 2 teams that are ranked. This week, same thing. Number 10 LSU, at Vandy. Both teams come in 5-1. Vandy opened 1.5. This game is up to 2.5 right now. LSU 9-0 straight up in their last 9 games against Vandy. Vandy 5-2 against the number their last 7 games. So we'll see what happens here. Vandy at home 7-3 straight up in their last 10 games. I know we chatted about this earlier. They're in an uncomfortable spot being a favorite in their division, in their conference.
So Vanderbilt, it's been 51 SEC conference games since they've been a favorite.
Wow.
They have not been a favorite in an SEC game since 2018, and they haven't been a favorite over a ranked football team, a top 25 football team, since 1978. So we talked about it several weeks ago. This is not.
Yes, I was bored by that.
This is not your grandpa's Vanderbilt football team. Again, both of them 5-1. Diego Pieva has been absolutely fantastic. They finally hit their first bump in the road with the loss at Alabama last week. But again, tied 14-14 at halftime, and they looked like a team that could play with Alabama on the road. Struggled in the second half. Alabama really stiffened up, didn't allow Vanderbilt to do much of anything. So this will be a big bounce back spot for Vandy. But again, they had the big win at Virginia Tech, the big win against South Carolina, and then they kind of picked on a little some sisters of the poor. LSU, on the other hand, has played some big teams. Clemson, Florida, South Carolina. The big thing for LSU here is Garrett Nussmeier, who was a Heisman Trophy candidate, a guy that was supposed to be maybe the top 5 pick in an NFL draft from a quarterback standpoint. This LSU offense has struggled. They put up 20 points against South Carolina, 19 at Ole Miss in their only loss, 20 points against Florida, 17 against Clemson, and even only 23 points against Louisiana Tech. So even in their softer games, they haven't been able to produce offense. The difference here is this is an LSU defense, and it's absolutely fantastic. They allowed 24 points to Ole Miss in their only loss of the season. Outside of that, this defense hasn't allowed more than 10 points in a single game. So Diego Paiva is going to have to be absolutely fantastic for Vanderbilt. They're going to have to be good on the offensive side of the ball because this is a very, very good LSU defense.
Well, I can say that you guys are believing in Vandy, though, because, again, this game opened 1.5. It's now up to 2.5, so we've seen a full point jump in favor of Vandy at home, hosting number 10 LSU. Another game we're going to look at, again, 2 ranked teams here. Number 5, Ole Miss, at number 9, Georgia. Ole Miss comes into this game undefeated at 6-0. Georgia 5-1. This game, Georgia opened up 6.5. It's gone up to 7. It looks like they might push us to 7.5 at this point as well. But a really intriguing matchup now. You know that Georgia's had this game kind of circled, waiting for the Ole Miss Rebels.
Yeah, I got to go to this Georgia Ole Miss game last year at Ole Miss. Ole Miss is a winner, 28-10. Electric atmosphere, unbelievable.
With a backup quarterback.
Austin Simmons came into that game, and then Dart led them to the victory. But now to go back to Georgia. Now, again, Georgia has not been fantastic. We saw them go on the road, win in overtime at Tennessee, come home, lose to Alabama 24-21, and then go on the road this week in a game that they were down 10-0 to Auburn, and Auburn had the ball first and goal at the 1, and Jackson Arnold fumbled, and that game flipped like that. Georgia goes on to win 20-10, but Auburn was about to be up 16-0 in that game. So Georgia, that Georgia defense somewhat found something, in that fumble, able to battle back. But Georgia, the offense has not been fantastic. Gunnar Stockton has not been great.
That's been the case with a lot of these quarterbacks that we thought would elevate offenses, which it hasn't happened yet.
And when you look at this number, you talk about Georgia being a 7.5 point favorite. The reason for that, Ole Miss obviously played absolutely fantastic last week, kind of a sleeper in a 3-point win against Washington State, and they came into that game a 33-point favorite. So didn't play very well at home. Maybe it was a look-ahead situation looking at this Georgia game. But for me, the big thing here is Trinidad Chambliss. That name is the quarterback that took over. It was a Division II transfer to Ole Miss, took over for Austin Simmons when Austin Simmons got hurt at Kentucky in week 2. And listen to what I say there. He got hurt at Kentucky in week 2. Trinidad Chambliss has not played on the road since taking over midway through that game against Kentucky. They've had home games against LSU, Tulane, Arkansas, and Washington State. So this Division II transfer hasn't had to travel on the road yet, and now he's going to have to travel on the road in the SEC to Georgia, of all places, to really make his first start. So that's why you see that number kind of elevated, that 7.5 outside of Ole Miss looking bad last week.
To 7.5.
And this is a tough start for a kid who's been absolutely fantastic. He's been able to throw the ball. He's been able to run the ball. Ole Miss has got a defense. They can stay in this Georgia game. It's really going to be how he responds to that electric atmosphere in Georgia.
He's got some skill position players that are really good too, especially at tight end, guys that can maybe help him and stretch that defense a little bit. But you're right, that's a big test to go for your first game on the road in a really tough environment.
Yeah, and Ole Miss is undefeated, and Georgia's got that one loss, so Georgia can't afford that second loss. And Ole Miss also, not only do they travel to Georgia this week, but they got to go on the road to Oklahoma next week. So back-to-back really tough games for the Ole Miss Rebels.
Just give you a couple of kind of intriguing or interesting betting trends here. Ole Miss 5-2 against the number of their last 7 games. They've gone under the total 13 of their last 8 games. They're 8-0 straight up in their last 8 games, yet they're 2-4 against the number their last 6 games against Georgia. And you look at Georgia right now, the total has gone under 9 of their last 11 games against Ole Miss, but the real number that sticks out, Georgia at home, 19-1 straight up their last 20.
Yeah, Ole Miss has not won at Georgia since 1996. So close to 30 years that they've been able to not secure a victory at Georgia.
Another big ranked game with 2 teams. Number 11, Tennessee at number 6, Bama. Both teams comes in at 5-1. Bama opens up an 8.5 point favorite. A little action on the dog here, Tennessee, plus the points. This number now sits at 8.
Again, Alabama for me somewhat struggled in the first half of that game against Vanderbilt. Talked about them being tied 14-14, and then they kind of turned it on. But you're going to hear all the pundits, can't turn on ESPN, can't turn on Fox, can't turn on anything, talking about Ty Simpson, the quarterback for Alabama. This kid is shooting up the draft boards. He's shooting up the Heisman Trophy. He can absolutely sling the football. Didn't really know the name at all coming into this year. He's been absolutely fantastic. The big thing for me in this game is Tennessee has become a national program, and they've been much better over the last couple of years. They have beat this Alabama football team in 2024 and 2022 at home. At Tennessee, they won 24-17 last year, and in 2022, they won at Tennessee 52-49. However, when they've gone on the road to Alabama, 2023 they lost 34-20, and in 2021 they lost 52-24. And then from 2020 going all the way back to 2015, they weren't even in competitive football games. Alabama rolled up Tennessee. The one thing that's interesting for me in this game is a look at the total. The total's 58 in the game, and when you go through and look at Tennessee's games this year, and considering this total's 58, Tennessee's played 6 games this year. Their total points scored combined with their opponent in the 6 games: 71, 89, 85, 80, 75, and 65. So this is a full touchdown less than their lowest scoring game of the season this year at 65. So the total at 58. So we'll see what kind of bends here, but Tennessee and Alabama obviously both have the offense to potentially get you that total of 58 very quickly.
It's interesting that you say that, because if you're looking at some betting trends here, Tennessee has gone over, as Jay mentioned, 9 of their last 10 games. Alabama has gone over 9 of their last 13 games against Tennessee. So something to look at there. Tennessee, however, is just 2-16 straight up in their last 18 games against Alabama, and they're 6-13 against the number their last 19 games against Alabama. As Jay mentioned, those have happened when they've been on the road at Bama and prior to 2022. But a lot of interesting trends there, really toward the over, where a lot of points could be scored. Another couple of games that really look good. You've got number 20 USC traveling to play number 13 Notre Dame. Trojans come in at 5-1. Notre Dame 4-2. A game opened up 8.5. It shot up to 9.5. I think you look at Notre Dame. We talked about it earlier with their early season losses. They were going to have to kind of run the table and run it impressively. We've seen this number go up. I think it's a tough spot, for me at least, for Southern Cal to go out there and be competitive. Early action clearly been on the Irish. I'm just not sure they have enough to stop Jeremiah Love and stay competitive with a game that's almost double digits.
Yeah, and again, that's been USC's problem against Notre Dame. Strangely enough to talk about physicality, but the Notre Dame's just been able to run the football through them. I think they ran for 286 yards in last year's matchup, which Notre Dame won 49-35 at the Coliseum. And then in 2023, here in South Bend, Notre Dame beat them 48-20. So Notre Dame's had a lot of success in the recent years against this USC football team. The one guy you talked about, Jordan Love, USC is going to have to find a way to stop
Jeremiah Love.
Right. That's been the problem.
Right.
They haven't been able to stop the run. Notre Dame's been able to run the football. Notre Dame's won 7 of the last 8 in this contest, 7-3 in the last 10. But Jordan Mailata, quarterback for USC, he does have a weapon in Mekhi Lemon. Mekhi Lemon had 9 receptions for 133 yards against Notre Dame last year. He's got 44 for 682 and 6 touchdowns this year. So the Notre Dame back end, we always talk about the speed of Notre Dame on that defensive side of the football. When you get a really fast receiver like this kid Lemon, that's the type of guy Notre Dame struggles with. So if they can kind of find a way to get him open, which they have in the past, right, that could cause Notre Dame some problems. But again, USC is going to have to stand up and find a way to stop this running game because it's just been Notre Dame's been they rolled up Boise State, they rolled up NC State, and you talked about it. A team with 2
really
losses.
Tough, yeah.
They've been impressing the pollsters all the way back up in the rankings, even with those 2 losses. So another win here, especially after USC beat Michigan last week, would be great for Notre Dame to continue to move up.
So if the Irish DBs can kind of squeeze the lemon, you're saying go ahead and lay the juice on Notre Dame.
This kid is an outstanding receiver. He's a kid to look for in the NFL draft. Makai Lemon, Notre Dame's got to find a way to stop him, but he's so exciting to watch as a USC football Trojan fan.
There's still a few more games, too, and we touched on it last week. It was such a good schedule, but this week is really good as well. Number 23, Utah, at number 15, BYU. Utah comes in a 3-point road favorite. Utah is 5-1. BYU is 6-0. Utah 7-1 against the number of their last 8 games. They've gone over 7 of their last. Total's gone over 7 of the last 10 games they've played. They're 6-1 straight up in their last 7, and they're 12-5 against the number their last 17 games against Brigham Young. So definitely some kind of flipping of the script there. Really intriguing matchup as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to be watching the Ole Miss Georgia game, but this is the one I have keyed up at night to watch. Number 23 Utah, 15 BYU. The Holy War. These schools are their schools are about 50 miles apart.
Right.
It's been since 2009 that they were both ranked when they had a chance to have this head-to-head contest. BYU won 21-20 or 22-21 last year at Salt Lake City. There's so many kind of interesting facts here, but one of the cool things for me, Utah's head coach Kyle Whittingham, he's been Utah's head coach for 21 years.
Right.
He is, and he's a BYU alumni. He's taking on Kalani Sitake, who's the head coach for BYU, who was on Whittingham's staff for 10 years at Utah. So these guys really, really know each other. Obviously there's no love lost, but again, with these teams 50 miles apart. But this is going to be a matchup of the quarterbacks. Bear Bachmeier, quarterback for BYU, great in the running game. Same thing on the other side. Devin Dampier, quarterback for Utah, who was a transfer from New Mexico. Struggled in the pass last week. Both of these two teams want to run the football. Expect a very, very physical game here. And crazy enough, I say it every time that BYU and Utah play, but watch the special teams. The fake punts, the trick plays, the pitch passes. These teams are going to come up with something unique to play this, this Utah rivalry.
I really like this week's schedule, Jay. I think there's a number of games. There's a few more we want to talk about as well, but there's a lot of big games.
One more thing on that Utah BYU. It will be our match of the day on Saturday, so look for that 10% bonus on the money line on the Utah BYU match of the day on Saturday night.
So I've got 3 more games I want to touch on as well. Oklahoma, who Jay alluded to earlier, came off that loss against Texas. Mateer really kind of struggled a little bit. We'll see how healthy he is in this game. They're a 5.5-point favorite at South Carolina. They've gone under 7 of their last 7 games. They're just 2-6 straight up in their last 8 games against an opponent from the Southeast Conference. South Carolina 12-6 against the number their last 18 games, and they've gone under 6 of their last 8 games as well. So something will have to give there a little bit. But Oklahoma, a 5.5-point favorite against the Gamecocks.
Yeah, 2 teams in desperate need of a win after the losses, and 2 quarterbacks, Lenora Sellers and Mateer, that were at Heisman Trophy candidates, NFL draft candidates, and it's a good matchup there with those 2 quarterbacks.
And they still have the potential to be first-round picks in the draft. There's no question. I know there's still a lot of buzz with Sellers, and depending on how healthy Mateer is and how he looks down the stretch, you have to put him in that category as well. Georgia Tech, they're 6-0, opened up a 3-point underdog to Duke. This number's come down from 3 all the way to 1. Georgia Tech 4-2 against the number of their last 6 games. Duke 14-6 straight up in their last 20 games. Yet this number's come down just a bit from 3 to 1. Undefeated Yellow Jackets going in to play Duke.
Yeah, 2 massive games in the AC. Obviously Georgia Tech, and the other one getting all the buzz is Miami, with both of them moving up the rankings, kind of on a collision course for that ACC championship, able to potentially even get a very good seed in the playoff if both these 2 teams can run the course. And I know Miami plays, I think it's Friday night against Louisville, not a Saturday game.
Right.
But again, a tough place for Georgia Tech to go play to keep that undefeated record.
And the last game I want to touch on is our Throwing Rebels, who are undefeated, playing on the blue turf at Boise, where they haven't had a lot of success. Rebels come in this game. The game opened 10.5-point dog. It's now up to 12.5. So you guys are kind of backing the other side in this game. There's been some money against the undefeated Rebels. UNLV 4-1 against the number their last 5 games. They've gone under 6 of their last 9 games. More so, though, for UNLV, I think you look at just 1-4 against the number their last 5 games against Boise. Boise 14-0 straight up their last 14 games at home, yet they're almost a 2-touchdown favorite here against the Rebels.
Well, we were begging for Air Force money last week. Didn't find a whole lot of it. UNLV not able to get the cover, able to get the late win. An exciting game, to say the least, for homecoming. Those at the stadium got to see all those points being scored, but the UNLV defense didn't play well, and I think that's why we see this big number from Boise, with the fact that Air Force, who came into the game 1-4, really had no trouble moving the ball on the Rebels. Again, it could have been that classic look ahead situation of a 1-4 football team coming into your house when you know you're traveling to Boise State next week. So we'll see how they're going to fare.
This could be a statement game, though, for UNLV. If they're able to go on the road on that blue turf where they haven't had success in the past, and they go in there and win this game and are 7-0, I think it's a much different story the rest of the season.
Yeah, and we always talk about weather when we start to get into October and November, and we sit in our beautiful Las Vegas Valley, although Mount Charleston finally got some snow, I heard this week. But we sit here and we don't worry about too much about cold weather. But when you're starting to talk about traveling to places like Boise State and Wyoming, you need to check that weather forecast and see if there's going to be some of that white stuff on the ground. So I don't think that we're going to see it this weekend, but again, as you move forward, make sure to check that weather forecast all over the country.
Again, it's a really good slate of college football games this week. Check it out. Check out the app. Get signed up for SDN Sports. Still have up to that $50 no-worry wager. But there's just so many good games this week. This is back-to-back weeks with really good college football games. We're going to talk a little pro football now. And this pro football season has already proved, Jay, to be crazy. The stuff you think you knew, you don't know. It's one of those seasons where we didn't see it toward the end of last year, where I think week 11 through the end of the season, it was just dominated by favorites. Favorites of 6.5 points or more hit at a 91% clip. This year, it's been the exact opposite. There's a lot more parity. You roll the clock back a few weeks, and the Cleveland Browns beat the Green Bay Packers, being a 10-point dog. The Giants beat the Chargers, and since then, we continue to see every single week some big upsets. The Eagles got beat on Thursday Night Football by the Giants. The Bills got beat. The Commanders got beat. So a lot of upsets so far and a lot of parity early in the season.
Yeah, and we were big fans, and thank you to the NFC South in the Carolina Panthers knocking down the Dallas Cowboys, and then the Atlanta Falcons on Monday night taking down the Bills. Those were kind of two of our bigger dogs for the week that were able to cash tickets that were good for our side of the counter.
Well, some questions that have come in is, overreaction or underreaction. Monday Night Football, the Buffalo Bills, they lose at Atlanta. Really, there was that touchdown that Drake London stepped out of bounds before the half. The game shouldn't even have been as close as it was toward the end of the game. And you look at Buffalo now. On that Thursday night game a few weeks ago, they did not cover against the Dolphins. They did not cover against the Saints. I know they were big favorites, but then they've been beaten in back-to-back weeks. Got beat at home by the Patriots, who they now trail in the AFC East. Can't remember the last time we said the Buffalo Bills are behind the Patriots. That was in the Tom Brady era. And they lose this past week to Atlanta right now. I'm not ready to hit the panic button yet. I think they're still one of the best teams in football. Maybe at the trade deadline, they need maybe one more skill position player. They need, to me, maybe a big-time wideout. They've got a lot of young receivers in Coleman and Shakur and Kincaid at tight end, but I think they could add maybe a big piece. We'll see how active they are at the trade deadline, but I'm not ready to hit the panic button for the Bills yet.
Yeah, and you talked about those games that they had at home. We talked about it last week. They had that stretch of 3 games at home against the Dolphins.
4 of their first 5
Dolphins,
were at
Saints,
home, though.
Patriots, a soft schedule, and then they go on the road when they had those 3 home games to a place like Atlanta, who I will continue to say it week after week. Atlanta is going to be a very, very good home football team, and when they go on the road, you don't know what you're going to get. They make the trip to San Francisco this week, back the Falcons at your own accord. But the Bills, for me, you mentioned it. It's finding which wide receiver is going to step up. James Cook is a solid running back. We obviously know what Allen can do running the football, but teams are not allowing that anymore. They're asking the Bills to go win games by passing to Palmer, Kincaid, Coleman,
Well, they
Shakur.
didn't have Kincaid. If you look, Kincaid 2 weeks ago, he led the team. It was his first time in his career that he had over 100 yards receiving. He was their go-to guy. They didn't have Kincaid this past weekend, and it altered a little bit of what Josh Allen could do.
Any one of those guys needs to step up, give Josh Allen the ability to throw the football. And if they can't do that, that defense just isn't good enough to keep them in games. They've been a good football team, even a great football team, because of what Josh Allen does with that offense, and the pieces of the puzzle around him just aren't there, or they're just not clicking yet. But Josh Allen, we know what he can do with his legs. We know what he can do with his arms. Somebody's got to step up. Let's see if they can fix stuff. They're in their bye week this week, and we'll see what they come back after the bye week. Coincidentally, they're in a bye week with the Baltimore Ravens, who are also taking the week off. I'll make an argument that the Baltimore Ravens have taken 6 weeks off or 5 weeks off. But hopefully we can see the Ravens get healthy, Lamar Jackson get healthy, and have them a competitive part of the National Football League, because these last 4 weeks with them without Lamar Jackson, they're really bad, and it's just not good for football. It's a free win on the bingo card to just bet against the Ravens, just non-competitive.
I know you touched a little bit about the Falcons too, especially at home. But you look at Penix, you look at Robinson right now, who you can make a case is the best running back in the league, maybe the best offensive player in the league right now. London's been really good. Pitts, although an underachiever, is still a big weapon. They should get Mooney back. Algiers been really good too. So they've got a lot of good skill position players. I like them kind of as an up-and-coming team. You look at the other two teams that played on Monday night. Am I ready to get overly excited about the Bears or hit the panic button on the Commanders? You look at the Bears, they've won 3 in a row. It easily could have won. They could be 4-1 right now. Kind of a phantom call early in that game against Minnesota that I thought cost them. But what they're doing now is they're buying in to Ben Johnson. Games that they didn't win, close games, they've won back-to-back games by the goofy score of 25-24. They blocked a field goal and made a field goal. So I think you look at Caleb Williams, he's starting to settle in a bit. They've got a lot of good skill position players. Swift is running the ball. They're getting healthier after the bye. They got a little bit healthier. They still play in a really tough division with Detroit, Green Bay, and Minnesota, so they have a lot of work to do, but I think they're trending in the right direction. The Commanders' case, I'm not ready to hit the panic button at all. I think they're still a really good team. They had no McLaren, no Noah Brown. The receiver group was a little bit depleted. I still love Jaden Daniels. It's a team that is still really, really good. They travel to play their arch rivals, the Dallas Cowboys, this week. In Dallas, they're a small favorite, but I still think the Commanders are one of those teams that will be there at the end.
I'm going to go back to the Bears, and I didn't think the win at the Raiders was all that impressive. I was impressed with the win this week, and we talk about players coming out of nowhere.
Though, anytime you can win on the road,
and a win is a win is a win.
Right.
To watch Jake Moody kick a game-winning field goal after his struggles.
It put me in a much better Moody. I think I texted you after that field goal went in.
After his struggles in San Francisco, he still had a field goal blocked in the game, but again, to see a game-winning field goal, a good news there. I'm a little bit concerned about the Commanders because this has been turmoil that started in the preseason. The whole Terry McLaurin not signing his contract, wanting more money. He doesn't participate in all the OTAs and their preseason games. Coincidentally, now that leads him to being hurt early in the season. This team also traded Brian Robinson Jr. to the 49ers. He was their running back because they had Jacoby Crosky-Merritt there to go with Austin Eckler and Chris Rodriguez. You bring in Deebo Samuel. So they have just so many moving pieces. You're depending on a rookie running back now that Eckler's hurt and Robinson's gone. McLaren's out. Deebo Samuel has been a part of your organization for 6 months. It's just too much pressure on Jaden.
Brown's been hurt.
On Jaden Daniels. On what wasn't necessarily a good Commander defense. It's always been on Jaden Daniels' arm to make things happen and be very special. And now, how much was he playing at 100%, or what percentage is he truly playing coming back from the injury? And now they go to Dallas this week, again, a team that has really, really struggled on defense. We saw Carolina with a backup running back just absolutely plow through them. So we'll see Crosky-Merritt, if he's got that ability to put the running game together, and the Commanders have to pull the running game together. But not everything is good in Washington right now, and I am fearful that they're not going to be able to get it back quickly.
Well, we'll see. They have a lot of season left, but hopefully they need to get those receivers healthy and back.
Dowdle. I was trying to come up with who Rico Dowdle running through that Cowboy defense all day long. It was great for us. Again, the Panthers were one of the biggest games of the week last week, and again, another team that is moving up the charts. The offense has been capable. They get Chuba Hubbard back. Ted McMillan for the Panthers has been playing really, really well. Again, another team that I think at home, Carolina will be competitive, and good luck to you when they go on the road. And they do go on the road this week to an 0-6 Jets team. So maybe there is some light at the end of the tunnel to find a way to get a road win. But the Jets desperate for a home win against the Carolina team.
So the last question that came in is, are the Chiefs back? And what I'll say to you is, they never left. I mean, it's a Chiefs team that is still really, really good. When you have Andy Reid, and Spags on the defensive side. And then you have Patrick Mahomes, and he's looking more and more like the Mahomes from 2 or 3 years ago, not the last couple of years, where he's getting 2 and 3 touchdown passes in a game. He's spreading the ball out. And guess what, guys? They're getting Rashee Rice back this week. So that offense now with Worthy and Rice and Hollywood Brown and Juju Smith-Schuster and Kelsey, they're rumored to be looking at running backs, if it's Hall or Kamara, to go along with that defense. All of a sudden, who looks like the best team in the AFC right now? The Kansas City Chiefs. So they didn't go anywhere. I think they're perfectly fine, and we're still going to be talking about them in January.
I'm not as sold as you may be on the Kansas City Chiefs. And
their defense is lights out, and you add these pieces on offense, I still think they're scary good, because who else scares you in the AFC right now?
Nobody. Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, and he does Patrick Mahomes things every game. You find these Schuster with a big catch, Kelsey still with a big catch. I know we're going to get Rice back. They've got Worthy. He makes things happen. But I still don't feel like they're the Kansas City Chiefs of old. And the reason I bring that up, and again, impressive win over Detroit at home, but the Detroit Lions were playing with like 7 starters on defense. I think they had 4 starting, whether it was safeties or cornerbacks, that were out for that game. And as much as I'm impressed with Dan Campbell's continued ability to have big cojones and go for it at every single opportunity he gets, sometimes he's wrong. Sometimes you got to take a field goal. Sometimes you got to punt. And their decisions to go for it on 4th and short cost them 2 drives that gave the field position to the Chiefs, and who end up going down and scoring. One of them was an Amon St. Brown drop that they would have got the first down. The Chiefs go right down and score. But, I mean, they weren't blown out of that game when you go back and look at it. They really gifted the Chiefs a whole lot of points with some of their own decision-making in that game. And, again, we talk about the Lions having to go play on the road and the difference of Goff at home and road. But for me, the Chiefs beat a banged-up Lion team in 1 or 2 plays of that game, and I think it's a completely different story. And we might be talking about the Lions being able to go on the road and win that game in Kansas City with literally a 1 or 2 plays made by that Detroit offense.
I think though you can say that almost in every game.
Sure,
there's 1 or 2 plays that really altered the game. And I'm just going back to are you worried about the Chiefs, or are they Chiefs or back? I just think that with that coaching staff and that quarterback, and you get Rice back, and will they be active at the deadline or not? And defense wins championships. And they've got the defense that can go out and win a Super Bowl if they have to. If that offense gets untracked, and with Rice and Worthy and Brown and Kelsey, and they add another piece, I think they're a really dangerous team.
Yeah, and they've got the gift this coming week of getting to play the Las Vegas Raiders in Kansas City, so they're the biggest favorite on the board. So most likely they're going to roll up another win. They've watched what we thought was a fantastic Los Angeles Chargers team and this really Broncos team in their own division not look particularly good the last couple weeks. The Chargers were able to steal a game from the Dolphins, a game that looked like they were going to lose. And the Jets, they were a field goal away from beating the Broncos in London last week. So both those divisional opponents not striking a ton of fear into you at this point in time that they're going to go steal this division from the Chiefs.
Right. I think before we break down some of the games this week, let's also look at last man standing in pro football. We're down to 69 remaining contestants. So very similar to what we saw in college football, a dramatic drop every week. And I think you look at games from last week, the Eagles losing outright to the Giants, the Cowboys losing to the Panthers, the Bills losing to the Falcons, and the Commanders losing to the Bears were all big games that unfortunately took a lot of people out of last man standing.
Yeah, I mean, you're not cheering for that contest to get cut, but you know why? We want to get closer to that $150,000 winner. We want to award that money as quick as possible. Hopefully we can award it before Christmas so that you can go make a big Christmas week of it for the family. So we're down to 69, and we'll see where that cut comes in next week. This coming week, most likely we're going to be in somewhere around that 35 heading into week number 8.
All right, so let's break down some games for week 7. I mean, one of the games that really kind of jumps off for me is the Colts at the Chargers. Colts are arguably one of the surprise teams in all of the league, definitely in the AFC. They come into this game catching 1.5 points, totals 48.5. Colts are 4-2 against a number of their last 6 games. They've gone over 6 of their last 9 games. However, they're just 2-8-1 in their last 11 games against the number versus the Chargers. Chargers 7-3 straight up their last 10 games. Chargers total has also gone under 5 of the last 7 times they've played Indy. But it's a Charger team now with all the injuries at running back, injuries at offensive line. They got off to that 3-0 start. They just don't look like the same team. And a Colt team with all those skill position players, with Downs and Pittman and Taylor and Warren, and the way that Indiana Jones is playing right now, they're a really confident, good team. And that offensive line, it's going to be interesting to see how they travel out west to play the Chargers.
Well, I did this last week and to see if we could get a Lad McConkey sighting anywhere, and sure enough, McConkey showed up this week against the Dolphins, had over 100 yards. You talked about the running back Vidal, came out of nowhere. He had an absolutely fantastic game for them, but again, they still struggled against that Miami team. Miami almost able to pull the upset if it wasn't for the late field goal by Dicker.
So the Chargers D is going to have to be the Temple of Doom for Indiana Jones, right? I mean, that's what I think.
When you look at this game, you actually ask yourself, this seems like a short number with the Chargers only being a 1.5 point favorite at home in this situation. You talked about the injuries, but again, they looked bad at home against the Commanders the week before. They go on the road to Miami, able to steal the win there. And the Colts have been rolling, but somewhat of a caution in that the Colts didn't look all that good against the Arizona Cardinals last week with Jacoby Brissett at the helm for the Cardinals. They were able to sneak out a late win in a game where all we've talked about with the Colts is that just hand the ball to Jonathan Taylor, play solid defense, sprinkle in some Pittman. Warren, the young tight end, has been absolutely fantastic. Some Pierce. And don't ask Danny Dimes to do too much. And I feel like they got a little bit of trying to make Daniel Jones do a lot. He had 2 balls that the Cardinals probably walk away with this game in glowing fashion if the secondary could catch the ball, because he had 2 interceptions that he basically handed to the Cardinals, and they dropped those passes and they able to get the win. If he does that this week, this Charger team should take advantage of it. But again, stay away from forcing him to win football games. Depend on the defense. Give that ball to Jonathan Taylor 25 times, and they're going to be in a good situation. But again, the Chargers, if Vidal's running the football, if they can sprinkle in Keenan Allen and Lad McConkey, and Quentin Johnson didn't play in the game in Miami, if he's back and you give Justin Herbert all those weapons, there's an awful lot of offense there for the Chargers.
Yep, I agree. Another game we're going to look at is Giants-Broncos. I guess the demise of the Giants was greatly exaggerated. They beat the Chargers outright, and they beat the Eagles outright last week on Thursday night. So they had a little bit more time to prepare. You have to love Scadaboo. I mean, this guy has just energized the team with Jackson Dart. You've got 2 rookies that have come in, are just playing great. The whole team is kind of rallying around them. It's a shame they lose Malik Neighbors, because that was a nice weapon for Jackson Dart. They play a Bronco team that they're just not winning pretty. I mean, they're 4-2. They easily could be 6-0. The 2 losses both came on late field goals. Bo Nix has just been so-so with all the hype from last year. They're coming home from the trip to London, where teams used to get the bye, but now they're at home where they're really good, and they do lead the NFL in sacks. So Jackson Dart's going to have his hands full against this Bronco defense. They're catching 7 points, but really kind of a fun matchup with 2 talented young quarterbacks in Jackson Dart and Bo Nix. So both these teams' futures are really bright with those 2 guys at the helm.
Yeah, I can't remember if Bo Nix was still at Auburn when Jackson Dart was at Ole Miss, obviously the SEC matchup there. But again, I'm with you. Whether Giants fan, NFL fan, watching Scadaboo Dart combination,
so much fun.
I hope these 2 young guys play for a long time, because they're a lot of fun to watch. We saw this Giants team pull the upset over the Chargers and then an upset over the Eagles. However, both of those games were at home. In their one road trip together, Scadaboo and Dart, they went and lost to the Saints. So not a ton of confidence that the Giants can take this upset machine on the road. The only thing that cautions me about the traveling to Denver, I would say Denver would be a great survivor pick this week, a team that you should target. But the fact that they're coming back from London somewhat scares me. And they didn't look good against that other Jets. New York team in the Jets. The Jets had an opportunity to really steal that game from them. So very, very difficult place to go play when the Broncos are playing well and that crowd is ruckus. So the young kids from the Giants having to make that trip. But slightly caution here in Denver's bad game against the Jets and the fact that they got to come home after playing in London.
I'm just going to throw out a few betting trends as well. Giants 5-13 against the number of their last 18 games. They've gone under 5 of their last 7 games. Denver just 2-5 against the number their last 7. They've also gone under 7 of their last 8 games, but they're 4-2 straight up their last 6 and 7-0 straight up their last 7 games at home. So as you mentioned, they are coming back from London. We'll see how they play, but that defense has just been lights out against a young quarterback like Jackson Dart. Now we're going to target the primetime games. Sunday Night Football, Jay alluded to it earlier. This Falcon team is really good, dynamic, exciting at home. They have not been great on the road. If you remember a few weeks ago, they traveled to play the Carolina Panthers. Not only did they get shut out, they never got past the 30-yard line in that game, but they've had some big home wins. They traveled to San Francisco. Frisco's a 2-point favorite in this game, and right now it looks like you may have Brock Purdy back, you may have Ricky Purcell back, you may have George Kittle back, so all those weapons would help this Niner team a lot in this game.
I will say it, I'm an Atlanta Falcons fan. They're a team that I'm looking at. You watched that game on Monday night, and it was the Bijan Robinson, Drake London show. These two superstars together running and passing. They were essentially that whole offense, sprinkled in an Algier touchdown there. Michael Penix able to get those guys to football. But they're a dangerous team because of those two guys that they have. They've been
but this
good at
is
home.
outside
Yes.
again, in a very tough environment. I know the Niners, no Bosa, no Warner, but they're a different team with Shanahan at home.
Yeah, and if you're able to stop that running game, if you're able to stop Bijan from getting anything, it really makes them a single-threaded team through London, and then they're not able to do stuff. And the defense is not fantastic. The Bills had their opportunities on Monday night, just weren't able to capitalize, to leak back into that game. But this Niners team, you brought it up, it's all about health. And they've been able to kind of tread water while these guys have been out.
It's a tribute to the coaching staff.
Yeah.
Shanahan's held these guys together, and we talked about it last week. You look at how they've kind of circled the wagons, and even games that they've lost, they're really competitive in, and they're getting these guys back. On the flip side, you talked about the Baltimore Ravens. They have just been horrible without Lamar Jackson. They haven't circled the wagons at all. They've had some injuries too, but this Niner team, every week they're losing a key component, yet they keep being competitive, and that's a tribute to, I think, the job that Kyle Shanahan's doing right now. And it looks like a lot of these weapons on offense, Purdy, Ricky Pearsall, and Kittle could all be back on Sunday night against the Falcons.
The combination of the Falcons' big win over the Bills, all those guys coming back is why you see the short number. The question mark is, are those guys going to be back? And when they all get back, what's their timing look like?
Right,
They've been out for 4 and 5 weeks. McCaffrey's been the guy that's kind of holding all the glue together, but we'll see how long it takes the Niners to kind of get back in game mode, and I think that's why you see that short number.
And I think you look at the Niners, and they've been really active right now already in conversations after losing Bosa and Fred Warner about Trey Hendrickson. Is he available from Cincinnati? They seem to be the team that are really looking at him. But Purdy, can he come back? He came back for 1 week after missing 2 weeks, re-injured that toe, and then was out for another 2 weeks. But it's their strength of schedule. They have the easiest schedule in the league with the remaining games. So they still could be a team that either wins that division or makes a run to be a wild card team if they're able to get healthy on offense with all those weapons.
And the other thing that these guys being out with injuries does is now guys like Kendrick Bourne and Tanja's the tight end, you're developing those guys. So now these guys are getting game time, game pace, and they've been having success. So now that you're able to sprinkle those guys in on top of adding a Kittle, a Jennings, a Purcell, and maybe even an Ayuk come back by the time the playoffs
week
come.
10 for Ayuk.
You start to talk about a team with a loaded lot of weapons and places they can go with to the football.
Just going to throw out a couple of betting trends for this one too. Atlanta just 3-13 straight up in their last 16 games when playing on the road against San Francisco. They're catching a very small number of 2 here. Niners just 4-11 against the number their last 15 games, and only 1-5 against the number in their last 6 games at home. So that kind of bodes well, maybe a little bit for Atlanta catching the points here. But again, the Niners are going to be getting healthy, it looks like, for this game. Now we go back to Monday night. It's a doubleheader again. We love the doubleheaders. This one's much more of a traditional doubleheader where you've got the, one game starts and finishes and the second game starts. They're not going head to head. The first game, Tampa against Detroit, which you could say is, Tampa's maybe the best team in the NFC right now. They're a surprise team. Baker Mayfield, that play last week where he had a scramble for 16 yards, and this guy does not go down. He is the kind of guy when he gets up and he's all fired up, the team's all fired up. They love this guy. He takes some shots, but he's been playing really, really well. They're trying to win the division for the 5th straight time. It's Mike Evans out. It's Ibuka out. Godwin's been banged up. Bucky Irving's been hurt, but it's next guy up. If it's Tez Johnson, if it's Sterling Shepard, if it's Cade Otton, if it's White running the ball, it doesn't matter. They play well because of Baker Mayfield. Now, they're going to be missing some key components on offense. Detroit is missing some key components on defense, especially in the secondary. They come off another loss, which was outside. Both their losses this year outside. They're back in the Dome, and this is a rematch of Week 1 last year when the Tampa Bay Bucks went into Detroit and won that game. Really exciting matchup. This game has gone up, though, from 4 to 5.5. Detroit Lions are a 5.5-point favorite in the early game on Monday night.
Yeah, and I talk about that Dan Campbell attitude that the Detroit Lions have. And
wait, isn't Baker Mayfield Dan Campbell as a player?
Yeah, when Baker Mayfield starts to coach, he will have Dan Campbell's attitude probably to go for it.
His DNA.
That perfect, that toughness. And you made all the points there about this game is about who's actually playing. I've been in love with Emeka Ibuka for Tampa. It looks like he might be 2 or 3 weeks with a hamstring injury. They might get Evans back. We'll see what Godwin's status is. Bucky Irving out.
I think the numbers kind of pointed to, no Irving and maybe no Evans, and that's why we've seen that number go up a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the number's gone up a little bit. Detroit, we talked about the injuries on the back end of the secondary, but Detroit, their first loss of the season was opening day to the Green Bay Packers. And then they came back in week 2, and I think they beat the Bears by like 30.
They scored 55 points in that game.
35. And when somebody else beats a Dan Campbell team, and then you have to go play that Dan Campbell team the next week, you should send a letter of disgust, because the Lions are a team that responds. And this is just, for me, looking at Tampa, this is a terrible spot because the Lions come home after a disappointing loss, and I think that no coach in the NFL has a way to motivate his team and get his team back up after a loss. And the weapons on offense are still there for the Lions, whether it's Gibbs, Montgomery, St. Brown, Williams, Laporta. That offense is absolutely loaded, and I just don't know if Tampa can match them touchdown for touchdown if they don't have all those offensive weapons.
That's the key for me.
And Detroit's at home. Right. Another big deal. Detroit's at home.
And maybe this is a game that plays out like you just talked about, but maybe they meet again in the postseason. And if you do have Ibuka and Bucky Irving and Mike Evans, it is a much more dynamic and different offense for Baker Mayfield. So I want to see that matchup happen. And you're right, I think the number would not be 5.5 if those guys were all healthy. Even if Detroit had their secondary guys healthy, I still think you'd see a number of more in that 3.5 to 4 range. But it's a really good matchup of two teams that are really good and might meet again in the postseason. I'll give you a couple of stats here. Tampa 4-2 against the number their last 6 games. They're 5-1 straight up their last 6 games. However, they're only 5-12 against the number the last 17 times they played the Detroit Lions. Detroit 16-4 straight up their last 20 games. We all know how good they are. 2 years ago, they let that game get away from them in the postseason in San Francisco. They got beat by the Commanders last year in the playoffs. They lost both coordinators, but offensively, they are still really dynamic. The late game on Monday Night Football, you've got the Houston Texans coming off their bye week. They've been a little bit of a disappointment this year. Some injuries offensively. Still can't protect C.J. Stroud. Playing against, for me, the equivalent of Tampa. Tampa and the Colts have been really good and maybe a little bit of surprise teams. It's the Seattle Seahawks. Sam Darnold comes in. They've played really good. Defensively, they've been great. They had, I think, 7 or 8 sacks last week against Jacksonville. This team is really playing well for Mike McDonald, their head coach, and they're a very talented bunch.
You brought up what I think is the key point in the game is C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans offensive line. Can they protect Stroud, give him time to throw the football? Because I think we're going to see what you just said. Seattle is picking up those 6, 7, 8 sacks. I think they're going to attack Stroud all day long. The Texans have not been able to move the football in the running game consistently with Chubb and Woody Marks. They're going to have to get something established there. Otherwise, it's going to be a dependent on a Stroud to Nico Collins, Stroud to Christian Kirk. And I really think that this is one of those chances where Seattle can absolutely suffocate this team. Texans are coming off the bye, so they get the extra time to prepare for it.
But place to play with the 12th man and everything. It's just
and the Seattle, they're seeing their Mariners up 2-0 on the Blue Jays, and so this Seattle crowd is not only going to have Seahawk fever, they got Mariner fever.
It's a Seattle doubleheader that night.
They are going to be going crazy. You are seeing sports pandemonium in Seattle. This seems like a very, very good spot for Seattle. And there's two other games before we kind of jump on to other things. Thursday night, Steelers at Bengals. The Bengals have been absolutely atrocious, but we finally did see some fights from them this week in Green Bay with Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
So we made the transfer from Browning to Flacco. They get him from Cleveland. Go ask Mike Tomlin what he thinks about the Cleveland Browns trading Flacco to Cincinnati to help out a division rival. But again, we saw the Bengals fight. We saw Jamar Chase able to make some plays with Flacco. Now they get another week of practice. I'm still not sold on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers under Tomlin, I believe they're 0-6 on Thursday Night Football against a divisional opponent. I always talk about the home dog. The Bengals are atrocious. I wouldn't want to have to bet them, but if I was betting the Thursday night game, I'll take the dog, I'll take the Bengals plus the points and pray for that home dog. And then again, the last of our European series, as we've spent every month with my wife having to ask me why I'm getting up at 5:30 in the morning to go to work on Sundays.
You got up that early on Sundays anyway.
For the
we
6:30 game, but
right.
The Rams play the Jaguars in the Jaguars' second city in London. This is their annual home game over in London. In what's turned into a very good game with two teams that are playing well. Rams didn't get the Jags didn't get the win that they were looking for last week. But again, this is a big game over in London for both of these two teams that want to stay at the top of the division.
No Puka for the Rams, I think, really hurts as well. So it is. There is some really good games in the schedule. Love the Monday night doubleheader, but it's not just football. I mean, we've kind of talked about. What a great time if you're a sports fan. We saw a puck drop over a week ago for the Golden Knights. The World Series is not that far away, and if you're a road team in the American or the National League, you reign supreme right now. As Seattle's won both games in Toronto, the Dodgers won both games in Milwaukee, and the association next Tuesday, it's tip-off as well. So it's such a great time to sign up for STN Sports. Get the app, as Jay mentioned, the match of the day, the up to $50 new bonus on there. Just a lot of great stuff, and we know it's going to start getting busier as it gets closer and closer to holiday time, and this brings the sportsbook to you. So don't hesitate. Get signed up for STN Sports.
Yeah, and be reminded we're now open 24/7 on the app, so no more downtime. Even those European games, we've added some Mexican baseball to the app, a lot of European soccer, Euro basketball, stuff going on all over the globe. So it's not just here in the States. Take a look at those overnight, evening hours. A lot of action still going on the app. A lot of live wagering, a lot of props. Talked about the Major League Baseball playoffs, the World Series. You're looking at 500 props available on these baseball games, from hits, RBIs, home runs.
Same game parlay.
Anything that you can be looking for, check out the app. We've got it for you.
And don't forget, when you do come out, and again, this weekend, as we've touched on, every single Sunday for the last month, is that the app is open 24 hours. Our kiosks are open, and all of our books will be open before kickoff of that Jags-Rams game in London. And when you are here, you get to enjoy $3 shots, $3 beers, and $1.99 margaritas. So you couldn't be at the game live. There's no place better to be than in one of our sports books with STN Sports. So for Jason, I'm Chucky for the Sports Betting Podcast Bookends, powered as always by STN Sports. We will see you guys next week.